There are times that the angel of the Lord, and we know that to be Christ Jesus, an appearance of Jesus in the Old Testament. Most of the time when it says the angel of the Lord, that's what it's referring to, because the angel of the Lord didn't have the name of Jesus at that time. And I have another study that actually tells you that Jesus fits the angel of the Lord, which I've taught on that from the Old Testament, but I come up with, in reading one of the commentaries, I come up with a couple more verses that talk about Jesus as an angel. Jesus as an angel. So you can link that to the angel of the Lord. Hopefully one of these days I'll be able to do that one. Ezekiel 21 in verse number 5. It says in verse 1, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward Jerusalem, and drop thy word toward the holy places, and prophesy against the land of Israel. And say to the land of Israel, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I am against thee, and will draw forth my sword out of his sheath, and will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked." So we see that the Lord has a sword. Now, if you read the book of Revelation, you'll see that that sword proceeds out of his mouth as well, but he has a sheath. So obviously he's captain. And he's, as the scripture says, he's a God of war as well. So he has a sword. Now, will he draw it? And has he drawn it in the past? And the answer to that is yes. He has done it in the past, and moving forward, he will draw it. And if you look here, this is why I went here, because this is future. It says in verse 4, "Seeing then that I will cut off from thee the righteous and the wicked, therefore shall my sword go out of his sheath against all flesh, from the south to the north, that all flesh may know that I, the Lord, have drawn forth my sword out of his sheath. It shall not return anymore." Now, there's another passage in the scriptures that says the sword of the Lord is filled with blood. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood, and he's going to use his sword to smite flesh and to go into war, especially against Antichrist at the Battle of Armageddon. As I said, the sword comes out of the Lord's mouth, but it must be an amazing sword. Really, think about, God has a sword, and he's going to draw that sword. I'm glad I'm on his side, because that sword would devour me as well if I was not on his side. And if you're saved, you're on his side. And thank God we're not going to be in front of the sword. We're going to be behind the swordsman, following him as he comes through. Now, I found a real interesting verse too about the sword of the wicked. Who feels a battle in the world that we live today? And it seems that the wicked are engaging even more against the righteous. Who feels that? Who feels that more than you did 20 years ago, 10 years ago? And you feel like, it's like, the more I see the flag that says, "Don't tread on me," the more I see that the wicked are treading on the righteous and on the rights of the righteous. And basically, it's like, leave me alone. Don't tread on me. But they can't stand it, because they want to take away, ultimately, they want to take away the worship of God and our Bibles, is what they want to do. That's where all societies that become wicked and turn to ungodliness, that's what they can't leave the righteous alone. They have to persecute the righteous in the end. And what we're seeing here is, as God has a sword, okay, and he's going to pull that sword out of his sheath, he says, the wicked, believe it or not, the wicked also have a sword. And I found this verse that we're going to go to very fitting for today. Very fitting. And I think you'll enjoy this verse. It says in Psalm 37. Psalm 37. You can link this up to today. Psalm 37. Okay, remember, God has a sword. The wicked also have a sword. So Antichrist must have a sword. The devil must have a sword. Satan, Lucifer. And, we talk about the Christian. We have a sword as well. Now, I don't know what the wicked sword is, but I know what my sword is, and you know what your sword is. So if you're going to fight a battle and win, what must you use? This right here. So if God has a sword, and we know his sword is linked to his mouth, he has a sheath, and his sword is linked to his word. Okay? When Jesus Christ comes, we know that the sword, and he's called the Word of God. He's called the Word of God. And the Bible talks about the sword of the Spirit. Okay? So that in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 12, the Word of God is quick and powerful. Okay? And sharper than any two-edged sword. And then we got the sword of the Spirit. And we have in the book of Ephesians, we have our armor. Okay? And we have a sword. So when dealing with the world, we have to use our sword. So we should know our sword. And we should be expert swordsmen in the word. We should be able to answer people according to the word of God. Now, if God has a sword, we have a sword, then the world has a sword. But again, I don't know what that sword is, but as you can see in 37, it says in verse number 9, it says, "For evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. For yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place, and it shall not be. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." Okay, now look at these verses. Psalm 37 and verse 12. "The wicked plotteth against the just, and gnasheth upon him with his teeth." So it's not the opposite way. It's not the opposite way. It's the wicked going after the just. It says in 13, "The Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming." But look in verse 14. This is the verse I really wanted. "The wicked have drawn out the sword." So again, what is that sword? What do you, I don't know. I don't have an answer to what the wicked sword is, but I can tell you it definitely is going to be like, if I was to guess, it would be like our sword. Okay? What's our sword? Word of God. What's in the Word of God? Scripture. Promises. Words. Right? Words. So if the righteous have a book that has words, and we know these to be true, the world has a sword. What might the sword be? Again, the Bible doesn't tell us what the sword is. It says the wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy and to slay such as be of upright conversation. Okay, so if I'm going to say the righteous have a sword and it's a book and it's words, then I would think that the wicked could use a sword against us. And what might that sword today be? It could be that. It could be perversions. It could be social media. Think about how many people's lives are destroyed because of social media. And if they label you, you're done. In the eyes of society, who wants to be labeled as a bigot? Who wants to be labeled as a racist? Who wants to be labeled as homophobic? But once you get those labels on, you can't get them off. And people, oh, you're racist. Oh, you're homophobic. Oh, you're Islamophobic. Oh, if you get a phobic on you, forget it, right? So are the wicked trying to destroy the righteous? And what are they using? Various outlets. Okay, the other thing they do is question the authority of God's word. They'll put down, as we talked about this, you watched the Kentucky Derby, and they said, well, they played my old Kentucky home, even though there was pressure on them not to play. There's a verse in the Bible that says, if the foundations be destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Okay, so the sword of the wicked And the agenda and everything they're trying to do with this sword is to destroy the foundations that were established in this country. And those foundations, many of them are Christian foundations. And if those foundations get destroyed, they're succeeding. Their whole goal is verse 14. The wicked have drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy and to slay. Look, and to slay such as be of what? Upright what? Upright what? What's it say? Conversation. Conversation. Words. Conversing. Talk. Media. Words. Oh man, how it links together, doesn't it? Get a nugget out of that. That's a good nugget. So if God has a sword, which he does, we have a sword, which we do. The wicked have a sword. Okay, now, we're talking about the sword coming out of the sheath. We should have this prepared at all times. And we should be able to bring it out. The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but spiritual. So, as much as I would like to, and I find it cool, and I don't know about you, when you watch fencing, and you see these guys fence and use swords, I find that to be really intriguing. That would be really cool to learn how to defend yourself with a sword. But even if I became a master swordsman, the weapon of my warfare still is not carnal. It's spiritual. It's mighty. So I challenge you today to become an expert swordsman for the Lord. And I hope I can say that everybody in here this past week has read your Bible. Who in here over the past week, if we go from Sunday to today, who in here has read their Bible? At least once, have read your Bible in 1 week. Okay. If you didn't put your hand up, I challenge you, and even if you did, I challenge you to continue reading that Bible. Read it and write it upon your heart so you have it there. Okay, now, God pulled the sword out of the sheath. In the Bible, the angel of the Lord did this a few times. Anybody know the first account of the angel of the Lord pulling the sword out of the sheath? Anybody know? It's with Balaam. Balaam, this is the first account in Numbers 22. Numbers chapter 22. Numbers 22. Numbers 22. It says in verse number 21, and Balaam rose up in the morning and saddled his ass and went with the princes of Moab. And God's anger was kindled because he went. And the angel of the Lord stood in the way for an adversary against him. Now he was riding upon his ass, and his 2 servants were with him. And the ass saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And the ass turned aside out of the way and went into the field. And Balaam smote the ass to turn her into the way. Now, if you get the connection between man and the animal actually was looking out for its master. And animals will do that. There are times that an animal will try to lead you out of a bad way. Who's ever had that happen? They got this commercial now where this cat makes eye contact with the, and tries to convince the human being to put their mask on. Is it Highmore? So the cat is looking out for the person, the owner. Now, I'll tell you this, I've had cats. They don't look out for you. Cats could walk over your dead body and purr. As much as you say, my cat loves me, my cat loves me. My cat loved me too. But I'll tell you this, if I had a heart attack and died, that cat would walk right over me, and it wouldn't even be bothered. It would. And for all you cat owners out there who said, oh, come on, Pat. You love cats. I like cats. I have no problem with cats. But I'll tell you this, they don't care about you. Okay, you can tell me stories later. Now, a dog, on the other hand, there have been dogs who have died because their owners have died. I mean, the connection with that dog. And for you cats versus dog people, I get it. You know, you love your cats, but I have to say, in my experiences with animals, a dog can be so connected to its owner that if something happens to the owner, that dog could potentially die. And how many times at funerals where the dog just laid underneath the casket of the particular, you know, especially with veterans, when they train these dogs, and this guy dies in war, and the dog goes to the funeral, and the dog's just laying there and won't move because its owner's dead. There's a certain connection between an animal and between its owner. And in this case here, this ass, its master Balaam, it was really trying to protect him because the Lord had opened the eyes of the ass to see what was in the way. And instead of the ass taking the owner into danger, it went out into the field. And of course, the owner, Balaam not knowing what was in front, smote the ass. Okay, so we can see that connection here. Plus, we can also see something here that the Lord opened the eyes of the animal. And oftentimes animals can sense things around that aren't right. And especially in the spirit world, which we'll get into that another time. But here we see that she sees the angel. It says in verse 24, but the angel of the Lord stood in a path of the vineyards, a wall being on this side and a wall on that side. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she thrust herself into the wall and crushed Balaam's foot against the wall, and he smote her again. And the angel of the Lord went further and stood in a narrow place where was no way to turn either to the right or to the left. So the third time, he stands in a very narrow place where there's no way to turn, and the ass has to go forward. Okay? But watch what happens. And when the ass saw the angel of the Lord, she fell down under Balaam. Balaam's anger was kindled, and he smote the ass with a staff. And the Lord opened the mouth of the ass, and she said unto Balaam, what have I done unto thee, that thou hast smitten me these 3 times? And Balaam said unto the ass, because thou hast mocked me, I would there were a sword in mine hand, for now would I kill thee. And the ass said unto Balaam, am not I thine ass, upon which thou hast ridden ever since I was thine unto this day? Was I ever wont to do so unto thee? And he said, nay. Okay, so he's having an argument with the ass. Okay, as standing in the way. It's like this, every time you read it, you get humor out of it because it's ridiculous. It says in verse 31, then the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam. Okay, so as the eyes of the ass was open, now we have Balaam. And it says the Lord opened the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and his sword drawn in his hand. And he bowed down his head and fell flat on his face. Okay, so now he falls flat on his face. He understands why the ass stopped and why she tried to get out of the way 3 times. The angel of the Lord was standing there, and imagine this sight when he opens his eyes and he sees the angel of the Lord standing there with a drawn sword. He gets it. He's like, whoa. So we see the angel of the Lord, a type of appearance of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament, not a type, but this is a Christophany. Here's Jesus, and his name is not Jesus because he gets his name Jesus at Bethlehem. But this, and people say, well, did he look the same as he did when he was on it? I don't know. I don't know what he looked like, but obviously he was a man, obviously the appearance of a man with a sword. There he is standing, and he's confronting Balaam with his sword drawn, and he's ready to do him hurt. He was going to slay him, okay? But he has mercy upon him. So we see man of war, drawn sword, the Lord, Jesus Christ, standing, drawing the sword. Okay, so we have one account of this happening here. And he tells him, he said, he's ready to smite him in verse 32. It says, and the angel of the Lord said unto him, wherefore hast thou smitten thine ass these 3 times? Behold, I went out to withstand thee, because thy way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times. Unless she had turned from me, surely now also I had slain thee and saved her alive. Okay? So, ready to slay Balaam, angel of the Lord with his sword drawn here. We find this also. Anybody know a second time in the Bible where the angel of the Lord pulls the sword? Not then. Not then. That's close though. Joshua. Joshua. It's not the angel of the Lord, but here it's the captain of the Lord's host. And this is interesting. I got a very good study on this. In fact, one of these days I want to bring it out. It's a really good study. It's on the captain of the Lord's host. I got the idea from reading my Ruckman Reference Bible. And in there, he runs a couple references. And I was like, wow, he is really on that. It's a tremendous study. And it talks about Jesus being associated as the angel in the New Testament. And in the Old Testament, I didn't find this verse, but one that the Lord had showed me, that the Lord said he would send his angel. Remember back under the law, before they came across the Red Sea, the Lord said, or when they shortly came, he said, I'm going to send mine angel. And it's capital A. And that angel was the one who was going to lead them throughout their roamings in the wilderness. He would lead them. Okay, and I don't want to get into the whole study, but it deals with Christ as captain. Christ as captain. And it reveals the angel of the Lord and shows you, especially in your King James Bible, why in the book of Acts, and I don't know if you've ever wondered this, in the book of Acts, there's a verse. You know which one I'm talking about, Dave? Okay, that's good. Dave knows it. Go there, Acts 7:45. I don't want to reveal my whole teaching because I tell you, it's a really good teaching. But it says in Acts 7, brother, what's it say? You know it. It says, okay, Acts 7. Now it says here, and Pastor Jim used to do this all the time. Before he would buy a Bible or give away Bibles, he would always make sure Acts 7:45 had Jesus in there instead of Joshua. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to teach this another time. In every, and this is what I read, okay? So I got this from somebody who knows Greek, Hebrew, and all of it. They said, in every single Greek manuscript on the face of this earth, okay, listen, in every single Greek manuscript on the face of God's green earth, Jesus is here and not Joshua. Okay? All the new Bibles take Jesus out of here and put Joshua in here. Okay? So if every single Greek manuscript on the face of the earth, and supposedly they got all of what they got from the Greek and Hebrew, every single one of them has Joshua instead of Jesus, except for the King James Bible. The King James Bible has Jesus instead of Joshua. Okay, now again, my study, hang on, Don. My study that I'm going to talk about is why Jesus should be in here and not Joshua. Okay, so if you've ever been challenged on this, it says, good, your question real quick? Okay, yeah, and then in the references, it'll say that, okay? But it should be Jesus. And again, when I do the study, I'll tell you why it should be Jesus, without a doubt. And if you take Jesus out of there, you've destroyed the revelation that God gave you, okay? It says, which also our fathers that came after brought in with Jesus into the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers until the days of David. Now, they will all argue and say, that should be Joshua because Joshua is the one that brought him in. So why would it have Jesus there and not Joshua? Obviously, that has to be a mistake. It should be Joshua. If you put Joshua in there, you're actually making a mistake. Okay, and what did I just say? If you put Joshua in there, you're actually making the mistake. Okay, and again, when I do this study, and I'm really letting the lid off what I'm doing here because this study is so good. But today I want to talk about the angel of the Lord pulling the sword out of the sheath. I'll try to maybe get to this next Sunday. It's so good, in fact, that I'd almost like to do it for the Sunday morning because we get more people here. I'd like everybody to be able to hear it. But for you Sunday school crowd, I don't know if the Lord has me do it next week. I'll maybe try to do it. I have it all prepared. I want to get a little bit more information on it, but it's really, really enlightening. Okay, so we got this verse here. Now we got the angel of the Lord drawing the sword out of the sheath in the book of Joshua as captain of the Lord's hosts. Joshua chapter 5. Joshua 5. Joshua 5. Joshua chapter 5. Okay, Joshua chapter 5. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho. Okay, now this is before they fight at Jericho. So before they actually engage in any battles. And this is Joshua now who's the leader. God established him as the leader. Moses dies, and before they fight any battle, it says in 13, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went unto him and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversaries? And he said, nay, but as captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? And the captain of the Lord's host said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. He doesn't tell Joshua, get your sword prepared. He doesn't tell Joshua, here's the game plan, the battle plan. He doesn't tell Joshua none of that stuff. He stands there with his sword. And Joshua sees him, and Joshua knows he's a man. So he doesn't know he's the angel of the Lord, but obviously this is who he is. He's standing there, obviously in flesh, with armor on and a sword. And Joshua's ready to fight him. So obviously Joshua knows in him he's a man, and he's standing in the way. And then Joshua says, art thou for us? Who are you, basically? Or for the adversary? I don't know you. I don't recognize you. Maybe he thought something peculiar about you. Who are you for? And he says, I come as captain of the Lord's host. And then Joshua takes off his shoes. He said, you know, what he also, in verse 14, I believe he worshiped him. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship, and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? So that he takes off his shoes, because it's holy ground. So again, before we go into any battle for the Lord, we need to have a good relationship with God. And it's often a good thing to pray before you enter into anything. Okay? Meet up with the Lord, get his mind on things. And here again, not the battle plan, but make sure you get things right with me before you go into battle. Okay? Very important. So the sword is drawn here. Finally, final time the sword is drawn, and you mentioned David, but it's not with David and Bathsheba. When's the final time that the sword is drawn in the scripture? Not the final time, but in my message today. What's the other time? When he numbers the people. He numbers the people. And David sins by numbering the people. He should have just been happy with everybody he had. You know, the Lord, and even Joab said that, the Lord give you many, like multiplied you. Don't make me do this thing. And David's word was more urgent than it was, and more, it was more urgent than Joab's. It was like pressing, go do it. And Joab even went, and the Bible talks about how he was very frustrated in doing it. And he actually left people out. He didn't number them. Comes back and he gives the number. And as soon as the number is given, then the Lord tells Gad, the seer, go give David some choices. Okay, now, why did David number the people? Obviously, he got filled up with pride, but Satan provoked him to do it. So, think about this. His pride, Satan said, oh, look at your kingdom. Sounds like Nebuchadnezzar too, doesn't it? So look at your kingdom. Go number and see how many people you have. You've become great, David. David says, good idea. That's why, when we say it's like voices whispering in your ear sometime to do things, be careful. Be careful. The devil can whisper sweet nothings into your ear and convince you to do things. That's why sometimes, then all of a sudden the Lord will say, hey, don't do that. But something pushed you to do that. A thought came into your mind. These are those darts that the devil throws. David was vulnerable. At this time, he threw a dart. Quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, right? This one got through. Oh, that's a good thought. I'll go number the people. So he goes and numbers, and then the word comes back from Joab. Here's how many you have. And it's like over 1 million people with the tribes of Israel. And when he numbers Judah, he gets 400,000 people. It's upwards near 2 million people that he numbers. And those are men that he numbers. So this is a big kingdom. And then all of a sudden the Lord says to Gad, he sinned. Go over and give him options. And he gives him options. Okay. Now, David, knowing the Lord's mercy, basically says, I'll fall into your hands, Lord, whatever you choose. Because the Lord says, hey, you want to fall to the enemies, pestilence? What do you want? Okay, so he gives them choices. Let's go over there to 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles chapter 21. 1 Chronicles chapter 21. Oh, thank God for his mercy, huh? Amen. Okay, it says in verse 8, verse 7, 1 Chronicles 21, verse 7. And God was displeased with this thing, therefore he smote Israel. And David said unto God, I have sinned greatly, because I have done this thing. But now I beseech thee, do away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. Now look in verse number 1. Let's go to verse 1 real quick. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. So it tells you right there, this came from Satan. It was a temptation. He provoked David. David fell to it. So it says in 8, David said unto God, I have sinned greatly. It says in 9, and the Lord spake unto Gad, David's seer, saying, go and tell David, saying, thus saith the Lord, I offer thee 3 things, and they're all bad. Choose thee one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So Gad came to David and said unto him, thus saith the Lord, choose thee either 3 years famine, or 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes, while that the sword of thine enemies overtaketh thee, or else 3 days, the sword of the Lord. Okay, now, who in here would like the 3 years of famine? Who in here would like the 3 months to be destroyed before your foes? Who in here would like 3 days? Why? Get it over with quickly. 3 years, no way. 3 months, too long. 3 days, yep, 3 days. So it's basically this. Your parents, your dad says to you, you're grounded for a week. For a week. And he takes away something, or go to your room for the rest of the day. And it's only 1 o'clock. Like, I don't want to go to my room. I'll be bored in my room. We didn't have all this stuff. Got a phone. You could go in your room and actually be happy. We went in our room and stared at 4 walls. That's what we did. There was no outlet for us, I don't want to go in my room. Okay, get downstairs. You're getting a beating, a paddling. That's what my dad would say. He never said paddling or getting a whipping and beat. You're getting a beating, a beating. Okay, beating. Oh, so get downstairs. Get to beating. But after that, you're free, right? It's like, okay, I'll take that. No, that's, today, nowadays, your dad gave you a beating. Yeah. These same people that cry about all, non-spank, they were the same ones that years ago got it too, We all years ago got beaten, spankings, paddlings, all that stuff. But after it was done, right? Okay, so the Lord basically, as a good father would, says to David, here you go. 3 years, 3 months, 3 days. David says, I'll fall into the hands of the Lord. Okay, that's what he chooses. It says in verse, or else 3 days the sword of the Lord, even the pestilence in the land. Pestilence in the land. Pestilence in the land. What do we have here? Yeah, it's not lasting 3 days though, is it? Lasting a long time. Done with it. Everybody, we're done with it, right? It's like, just, you just wish society could go back to the way it was. Will it ever? I hope. I hope it does. It says, even the pestilence in the land, and the angel of the Lord destroying throughout all the coast of Israel. Now therefore advise thyself what word I shall bring again to him that sent me. And David said unto Gad, I am in a great strait. Let me fall now into the hand of the Lord, for very great are his mercies. And I love that too, right there. Very great are his mercies. But let me not fall into the hand of man. And I agree with David. I wouldn't want my enemies coming in there and destroying. I wouldn't want them to get the satisfaction. Lord, I sinned against thee. Don't bring them. You bring what you have to do. And the sword of the Lord came. Imagine this. This is what happened. God sent his angel, the angel of the Lord, and he said, pull your sword out. He pulls that sword out. And he says, smite. And he smit. He started to smite. How many died? Huh? 70,000. When's he stop? This is one of the greatest passages in the Bible. He stops when he gets close to Jerusalem. He gets to the Ornan's threshing floor where they thresh wheat. And before he can shed a drop of blood, the Lord says to the angel of the Lord, what? Stop. Put up thy sword. Why was there no blood going to be shed there? Because Christ, the angel of the Lord, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, would never shed blood over the holiest place on this planet. That's where the temple was going to be built. Right there. And in fact, David's sin turns out to be a great blessing for his future generation, his son Solomon. And this is the place that God stops, and God repents him of all of this and says, stop. Done. There. This place. And it's Ornan who sees the angel of the Lord. And it's David who then says, I got to purchase this particular area. And Ornan wants to give it to him. But David takes accountability. And I'll tell you this. I appreciate everything that you do and everybody who comes to this church. But I'll tell you what, for those that really, really, really are faithful to every service, faithful to teach Sunday school, faithful to pass out tracts, faithful to street preach, faithful to clean the church, faithful to do all that this church is about and every aspect of this church, faithful to put the hymnals back after the services, faithful to clean up, to do whatever is asked of you. Faithful when we have breakfast, you come here early. When we set up events, you're part of it. Faithful when we have our church picnic, you're there prepping, getting ready. Faithful. You know what that is? You're 100% all in. You want to do all that you can do for God. And there's something to be said for those that are 100% all in. Faithful. Faithful. And David was faithful. In fact, in this particular account, he tells God, Lord, you should have smitten me and my family instead of all of these sheep. I sinned. David takes accountability, and that's one thing that makes David a great leader. He doesn't blame others. What did Saul do? What did he do? He says, what meaneth then the bleating of the sheep in mine ear? And he says to Samuel, he said, the people. David would have never done that. David takes full accountability for his actions and says, this was my fault. I should pay for it. And not only that, but David is willing to part with, he won't take this land. I mean, Ornan wants to give it to him. Take it. And he says, nope, I won't take it. I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to do it the right way. And how many people, here's another thing. How many people go to churches, come to church, and they take of all the holy things, but they won't give of carnal things, as it says in 2 Corinthians. They won't tithe. They won't give back to God. They won't do it. You know why? They're not all in. They're not all in. When your heart is right, you know you have what you have because God gave it to you. Amen? And you're willing to say, oh, Lord, I'm willing to give back because I know if I'm faithful to you, you'll be faithful to me. But for some reason, Christians just can't embrace that. Mine is mine. I work for it. This is mine. But they forget that it's God who gives them the wisdom to do it. They forget it's God who keeps their heart pumping to do it. They forget it's God who keeps their muscles flexing and their bones strong. They forget it's God who gives them the air to breathe. They forget it's God that did all this for them so they could have this. That's what they forget. David would not do that. Lest I get into a full-blown message and start preaching, I'm trying to stay true to Sunday school teaching. Let's go to, okay, we're here in Chronicles. So it says the Lord sent the pestilence. It says in verse 14, so the Lord sent pestilence upon Israel, and there fell of Israel 70,000 men. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it. And as he was destroying, the Lord beheld, and he repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed, it is enough. Stay now thine hand. Look where the angel of the Lord was. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan, the Jebusite. Okay? Now, it says in verse 17. 16. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord stand between the earth and the heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand, stretched out over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders of Israel, who were clothed in sackcloth, fell upon their faces. And David said unto God, is it not I that commanded the people to be numbered? Even I, it is that have sinned. See, accountability. He was a good leader because he was willing to take responsibility for his actions. Even I, it is that have sinned and have done evil indeed. But as for these sheep, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, O Lord my God, be on me and on my father's house, but not on thy people, that they should be plagued. Then the angel of the Lord commanded Gad to say to David that David should go up and set up an altar unto the Lord in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And David went up, saying of Gad, which he spake in the name of the Lord, and Ornan turned back and saw the angel, and his 4 sons with him hid themselves. Now Ornan was threshing wheat. And as David came to Ornan, Ornan looked and saw David and went out to the threshing floor and bowed himself to David with his face to the ground. I'm sure this was a crazy time. Here's the angel of the Lord, and it appears he's pretty large. I don't think he's a 6-foot man. This angel was big because it looks, he goes between earth and heaven. It appears he's pretty large, and he's fighting. Now, whether or not he looked like a man, he definitely looked like an angel at this particular time. And he was probably very large because you could see he was big, okay, standing earth and heaven. Now, Ornan falls on his face. David comes. It says in 22, then David said to Ornan, grant me the place of this threshing floor, that I may build an altar therein unto the Lord. Thou shalt grant it me for full price, that the plague may be stayed from thy people. And Ornan said unto David, take it to thee. All right, he wants to give it to him. Take it to thee, and let my lord the king do that which is good in his eyes. Lo, I give thee the oxen also for burnt offerings, and the threshing instruments for wood, and the wheat for the meat offering. I give it all. So his attitude was right. And King David said to Ornan, nay. Basically, no way. I'm not taking it. Nay, but I will verily buy it for the full price. For I will not take that which is thine for the Lord, nor offer burnt offerings without cost. So David gave to Ornan for the place 600 shekels of gold by weight. And David built there an altar unto the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings, and called upon the Lord, and he answered him from heaven by fire upon the altar of burnt offering. So David calls basically fire down from heaven there in 26. The Lord answers by fire. And the Lord commanded the angel, and he put up his sword again into the sheath thereof. At that time, when David saw the Lord had answered him in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite, then he sacrificed there. For the tabernacle of the Lord, which Moses made in the wilderness, and the altar of the burnt offering were at that season in the high place at Gibeon. But David could not go before it to inquire of God, for he was afraid because of the sword of the angel of the Lord. Okay, now, if we stop there, we haven't uncovered the revelation. We have to go to the next verse. The next verse uncovers the revelation. What was so important about this threshing floor? Then David said, this is the house of the Lord God, and this is the altar of the burnt offering for Israel. Okay? Right there in chapter 22, David begins to set up and bring in all the supplies to build God the house. David wants to build the house. But the Lord says to David, you can't build the house because your hands have shed blood. And as blood is being shed, God wouldn't let the one who shed the blood build the house. So do you think he's going to have blood shed on the floor? Keep it clean. The Lord sees that land. And I'll tell you what, there's something about when God sees that particular parcel of ground and what's sitting on it right now. Dome of the Rock is sitting on that piece of ground. That piece of ground, God said, this is where the temple will be built. And make no mistake about this, that piece of ground, God still has his eye on. And there will be a temple there. And God will make sure that temple is built on that piece of ground. That is the most sought after, beloved piece of ground in this whole world. No greater piece of ground in God's eyes than that piece of ground where that temple is going to be built. Some may argue and say, well, how about where Jesus died? That's a sacred piece of ground. Yeah, that's sacred too. But this is where God dwelt, right there in that piece of ground. And God established it after a man sinned in numbering the people. God's mercy is great, isn't it?